Genesis 3:15 says, "This is the sentence given by the Most High to the ancient serpent, to Satan, the devil. I will put enmity between the woman and you, between your seed, and her seed will crush your head. You'll bite off his heel." So to annul this sentence, to make it ridiculous, to render it null and void, these spirits have heard of doing with men's daughters the same posterity, a common posterity. These rebellious spirits wanted there to be no posterity of the woman on one side and posterity of Satan on the other. They want there to be only one posterity, it being clearly understood that the same posterity will not fight each other. Will not fight each other, and so the promise, the sentence, would have been cancelled. To do this, these spirits have trampled underfoot all divine principles, especially Psalms 115:16, where God says he gave the earth to human beings, to the human species, and the heavens to the heavenly spirits. They violated procreation, which is God's very first commandment to man, according to Genesis 1:26-28. Genesis 6, verses 1, 2, and 4 says the following: "When men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them." Verse 1 and verse 2, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took daughters of men for wives from among those they chose. That's verse 2. And verse 4 says that the sons of God went to the daughters of men, whom they had therefore taken as wives, and their wives, these daughters of men who have become the wives of these rebellious spirits, conceived and gave birth, these giants, these monsters, these hybrids, these humanoids we spoke of earlier. And this is the founding fact. You have the flood on earth, of the anger that led God to repent, decimating mankind, shortening human lifespans from millennia to a mere 120 years. This unnatural relationship between spirits to whom God has nevertheless given no reproductive apparatus, according to Matthew 22:30. And these men's daughters, who would normally have, make sure, as Genesis 4 verse 1 shows, and as Genesis chapter 1:28 injuncts, to procreate human beings, therefore with human fathers, earthly biological fathers, male progenitors. This precedent constitutes relevant jurisprudence, and if it is a relevant jurisprudence, it is because it is the true Christ himself who has decided this, who says so. Inasmuch as in Matthew chapter 24 to verse 37, answering the question put to him by the disciples in verse 3 of the same chapter 24, the disciples asked him, they had come to meet him on the Mount of Olives, "But Master, what will be? What will be the sign of your coming, of your return, of your second coming?" And so in verse 36, among the answers they were given of the weather of the coming of the Son of Man, of his second coming, it is written, he'll be here. To the time at the coming of the Son of Man, which happened in the days of Noah. What happened in Noah's time will happen again, to the coming of the Son of Man. The question is, why the true Christ feels the need, the urgency, to refer, to prescribe for the attention of our generation at the end of the end times on what happened in Noah's time. To put it another way, what is the similarity between what happened in Noah's time with the end of the end times in connection with the Messiah and in connection with his second return, to direct our gaze in that direction, saying, this will be one of the weather points of my visit. It will be one of the signs. The answer to this question is, in Noah's time, what has happened is what we have explained a moment ago, namely that men's daughters became spirit women in unnatural interspecies relationships. Rather than giving birth to ordinary humans like us, the beings instead generated colossal humanoids, monstrous creatures. Consequently, the Creator's anger reached immense proportions. In response, he punished mankind, sanctioning a lifespan limited to 120 years and unleashing a catastrophic flood that engulfed the entire earth. The flood was caused by the birth of humanoids on earth. So the reason for God's spectacular wrath was not that the people of the time were reckless, got drunk, or indulged in the same excesses as virtually every generation, including our own. So this is what happened in Noah's time. Don't confuse cause and consequence. The cause is this unnatural relationship, the consequence of which was that the woman and spirits created a common posterity, which is not the image of God. For remember, in Genesis 1:26, the human being on earth is in the image of God. In other words, the original man, the first man, is God himself. It's not God or the true Messiah who is in our image. It is we who are in his image. And besides, several texts are there to prove it. Notably, 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 19 and 20, which explain that before the foundation of the world, the Messiah, in fact, is the Lamb. But let's not digress. The question now is, in accordance with the prophecy of the true Christ in Matthew 24:37. Since we are at the end of the end times, since we are on the eve of the second return of the Messiah, the true one, is what happened in the days of Noah. It also happened on the eve of the coming of the Son of Man. Can we find what happened in Noah's time today? Well, that's the question. And the answer is yes. Or if you prefer, alas, yes, 3 times yes. What happened in Noah's time and what has happened in our time and what is in effect. It's that in our time we have in Luke chapter 1, verses 26 to 38, and in Matthew chapter 1, verses 18 to 25, we have a mimetic reproduction of what happened in Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 to 7. Mimetic, similar. We have a spirit that goes with a man's daughter, in this case, a young virgin. And of this virginal transaction, since she is young and a virgin when her child is conceived and born, a child was born, a hybrid, a humanoid, emasculated, because he had no carnal biological father who would have provided him with the Y chromosome, which allows a son to be male or a boy to be masculine, as there are no sons other than males, no boys other than males. He is thus emasculated and effeminate in the sense that the only human portion that inhabits his body and blood is that of the contribution of his female genitor. There is no paternal, biological, human carnal contribution. And so, we have a being, humanoid being, emasculated and effeminate, who calls himself Jesus Christ, a false Christ. The Antichrist, to whom Christianity has pledged its allegiance. And instead, under these conditions, are becoming the light of the world. Christianity has plunged humanity